guys a few things that are when you go out to a customer site, just to watch out for, ways to speed up display and performance, and a few of the NT specific things that are utilities that we have, and then I'll get out of here. So, okay, so first off, I want to show you when you start off Maya on the NT, you might get something like this error right here. And I don't know if you can read this, but it says you cannot find any AW star.dat files in your C:/FlexLM. And so you might go into your browser over here, and you go into C:/FlexLM, and you see that it has an AW.dat file. And so you go, NT is shit. What's going on here?
Exactly. That's enough. Right now.
Yeah. Well, this has got to be the most retarded thing ever, because this is default on NT. You have to go into here into your exploring view options over here, and you'll see that it has hide file extensions for known file types. So, yeah, it's like Big Brother has said, we know better than you. Stupid SOB. So, let me show you what happens when you take off hide file extensions for known file types, and you press apply. You see, watch aw.dat turns into aw.dat.txt.
So a dat file is not a known file type?
It knows that it's a .txt file or a text file. So you see that it's aw.dat until you unhide the file extension, and you see that it's a .txt.
Sure. So you need to rename.
So you need to rename this. Take out .txt, rename it. Say yeah. You notice that the icon changed here as well.
Nope.
Now it's an aw.dat. You see that the type right here is a FlexLM license file. Thanks, Microsoft. Yeah. So now you get that, and it comes up.
You gotta make sure it's good.
So that's really something to watch out for. Everybody gets caught by it once, so watch out.
Wait till studio.
I'm not doing that problem. That's another thing right here is like when we're moving this around right here, we can see that it's showing these contents right here, and it's really neat. Ooh, I can see what's going on when I drag my window. Well, Jim Cruson, my boss, said make sure that you tell these guys that that's really going to slow down your performance because it takes up a lot of your display. So the way that you can do that is what I did is right mouse button on the desktop, and that brings up this pop-up menu. You go into properties, and that pops up in your display properties right here. You can go into your settings, or your plus right here, and you have another checkbox, show window contents while dragging. Well, turn this off, hit apply, hit OK. You get a lot faster performance. Not only dragging your windows, but also in the performance of Maya for things that are draw or display dependent. So that's really important too. By the way, that's another default. So turn that off.
Can you save all this stuff so that it's not default anymore?
Yeah, once you do it, once you set it, it'll come up, with your settings that you've saved. But if you don't know it and you just go, okay, well, I'm going to pop on Maya with NT, you're going to get these defaults here, so it's going to slow it down. So those are two of the most inane things about Maya NT. I thought I'd show you those.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. And get out of here.
Just wanted to show you guys a couple of editors that are going to help you out when you're going onto a customer site and they might have a problem. Just a few of tools that will help you out. Over down here, can you guys see down at the bottom of the screen here? That's the taskbar. The taskbar is where you do a lot of stuff. You have like your start menu down here where you can get your programs. You can also, on this bar, you can right click, and that brings up this another pop-up menu. And you get something like properties right here. And this brings up the properties of the taskbar so that you can hide this. So you can hide the taskbar, or you can unhide it, or always have it on top. But what's more important is when you right mouse button and you hit Task Manager right here. This Task Manager gives you a lot of information over here. It has 3 tabs up on here. One is the applications that are running. So you have Exploring, which is my browser. And I have Maya running already right here that you can see. A lot of times if you have a abnormal termination,
Write that down.
yeah, that's a buzzword. You can end the task this way. You can choose the application and you hit End Task, and it ends. And it might bring up a dialog box saying, do you want to wait for a second while we clean it up? But, you can still say, just end the stupid thing.
And Control-Alt-Delete brings this up too, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point, is if you hit Control-Alt-Delete, that's also like the Vulcan death grip. What it'll do is it'll pop this up. It'll say, gee, what do you want to do? You can log off or shut down, or you can bring up this Task Manager right here, and it'll bring this up again. So you can access it that way if you've locked up and you don't have access to the taskbar at the bottom right here. Secondly, in this tab is the processes. So this is your process ID numbers right here. So you can go in and you can see what processes are running. Once again, you can also choose something and you can end the process this way. And the third tab is this performance tab right here. And performance tab is sort of like the GR OS view. So you can see what's going on here. You can configure it with what you want to see as far as performance goes.
It's like a Lay's commercial, isn't it?
And so here we have things like CPU usage. We have memory usage. We have the kernel memory. We'll have stuff like virtual memory and physical memory. So this will give you an idea of what's going on with performance, like if you're doing a renderer, or whether you're using both processors, if you have a multi-proc machine, or whatnot. So,
do you know how swap and virtual and all that work with NT? Is it the same sort of rule of thumb, or?
It is sort of the same rule of thumb. You can set your swap by going into the control panel system inside there, and you can set that.
Does it make a file, a swap file, just like it does on others?
Yeah. Essentially, that's generally it.
Yep.
Mr. Ibrahim, question?
Yeah, if you go back to the process list,
Yep.
so within there you can actually go and assign certain processes to operate a certain process. It's like a control key or something, you click and it pops up, you can select that one process whenever you want to run.
Would you like to show us that?
I don't remember exactly the key.
NT guy, you can't show us that.
I got like an email.
I mean, you can also render without having a line around.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, you can batch it. Well, hold on a second. Just
Sharing your brain for you?
Well, that's what they do, stick the fun.
Yeah, but there is a way of doing it. I saw it.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Let me know what it is. I'd like to know. So, Peter.
If flag gets hung, how do we like kill it?
I mean, you just showed it. I mean,
Oh, that bag of chips were in front of your face.
The crash, right?
Kill it.
an abnormal termination,
Are you listening to us?
you can go into the task manager, right? Yeah? Yes. Hey, some people are Control Alt Delete. We'll do this.
It's like Vulcan.
Pete,
Okay.
you're gonna have to stay after class.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Not in place during the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, Clark. Okay, so that's the task manager right here, and we've got an assignment for Kenny to give us that processor.
All right.
Okay. Next, you saw me bring this up before, and this was the display properties. Right mouse button on the desktop, and it brought up the display properties. It's the same one that you get when you hit Start, Settings, Control Panel, the display over here. It brings this up. It's the same one. One thing about graphics drivers, this is going to be your worst nightmare. Each one is different. They all have different configurations. They all have different ways of saying the same things. And we're working with the hardware vendors to get the latest drivers. So you'll have to check either the assist page. I think off of the Santa Barbara assist page, there's a link to the latest drivers, or else you can go directly www.intergraph.com or Compact or whatever. What's that?
That side is slow as hell.
Well, that can't look like that. Yeah. So that's really an FYI for you guys to get the latest drivers. It's really important. Ultimately important. Can't stress that enough. Okay. In this case, we're looking at this is the Diamond Fire, and supposedly this is the latest driver, and it has a Maya preset right here. Just to let you know, right now, these are wrong. So, these presets are wrong, okay? They're wrong. Just not wrong. Yeah. Just some of the things that are common in all these display properties is you want to have the overlay planes turned on. That'll do the hardware overlay planes. Otherwise, things like your timeline or your artisan, they're going to be really slow because it's going to have to do overlay planes in software. You don't want to do that. So it's going to look like hell. You want to have this 4-bit overlay planes or whatever number of overlay planes turn on. You want to have minimized pairing is what they have right here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's the sync rate for the display. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll sync the refresh rate to the display rate for your monitor. Well, that's most of the time you want to turn that off because it'll speed it up about maybe 35-40% for your display, and you can live with a little bit of pairing, so, especially for the speed increase for your customers. And you do not need stencil planes. Doesn't use them at all. You do want to have force hardware cursor on. So those 3 settings, force hardware cursor, 4-bit or overlay planes, hardware overlay planes, you want to turn those on. Minimize pairing or sync to refresh rate. They'll have that terminology in there. You want to turn that off. So that's just in general. Each one is going to be different. We'll try to have the Maya presets inside there for you for all the hardware vendors that we're working with, but there's no guarantees. If someone has an Oxygen card, right now the drivers are kind of crappy, but we'll try to get it for them. The other one that I showed you guys, as far as the tabs go, was show window contents while dragging. Once again, turn that off. You'll increase your speed of Maya incredibly. Other things in here, your settings, so you can set your pixel rate and your refresh frequency inside here. If somebody's complaining about performance and you see that they have like 8 megabytes for their video RAM and they're running at 1280 by 1024, well, you probably know it's going in the swap. So turn that down. You're going to have to tell them to lower their screen resolution. So these are all things for you guys so that you can get it all running faster and please the customers with what they have. Here's your different appearance things. So some of the cosmetic stuff and through here. I'll try to increase this for you guys here. Yeah, that's another pain in the butt. For all your display settings, you have to reboot, but never mind that. Okay. It wants to reboot, yeah. Okay. Those are the important things in the display properties. So, Gamma, sometimes in the settings, like in some of the intergraphs, you can adjust the gamma, and other ones you can't. So, once again, you will be aware of what drivers you have and what kind of graphics cards.
Hey Tristan, how often do they update the drivers for?
Once a week.
Yeah, it's all the time.
Yeah, roughly. While we were certifying them, we would get some once a day. Or yeah, I mean the lifespan of these drivers are just really small. I mean, like
And are they
time of a dragonfly or something.
Are we running determinants upon current drivers, or like the drivers we have now, they're good, and the machines we have, we don't need to update them until a new machine comes out?
No. That's kind of, you don't want to do that. The drivers that we have are certified right now. There can be, there's a ton of little bugs that are out there, and we'll update them quite a bit. Try to update them, yeah. Like if you come out and you get a blue screen error, 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a graphics driver problem. It's not a Maya problem. So, a blue screen on NT is a kernel panic. So that's a really bad crash. But 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a display driver. So, first thing I would check is go get the latest driver.
So we're publishing the latest drivers that we've tested, and should we try to stick with those, or should we always get the very latest one to get our hands on?
The answer would be to go with the fault chart stuff and make sure check when the latest update was for that particular driver.
And do we actually have the drivers on our website that we can download them, or do we have to go to the vendors to get them?
That's a good question. The page, I checked on the page. I haven't even seen it yet, but supposedly Tracy Hawkins was going to own that. So
Maybe we can give these out to customers, or
yeah, if it's on our call chart, it should be. It's
is it
public.
going to be available to customers on our website too?
I'm not sure about that policy. But
they're available on the vendor's website.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, you could get.
Yeah, they'll have the ones that the daily bill.
And will they be self-installable?
Yeah.
They'll override the old one? Or?
Yeah, most of the time, installing a graphics driver is pretty easy. You just go into the display properties. You go into the settings, and they're here. You go into the settings, you go to the display type right here, and then for this one, it's the Diamond Fire GL video, 4000 video. You hit change. It says administrative privileges. You would say change, and it would bring up another dialog, hence the name Windows. And then it would ask you, do you have a disk or something? You could say, I have a disk. And you can point to, your C drive, temp driver folder, and then you can just install it. And then reboot. Remember, reboot. So, yeah, it's pretty simple to do.
What about NT5 coming up?
Don't hold your breath.
Well, it's supposed to be like November.
99.
Yeah.
If you load, if like a customer loads their own driver and it craps on the display, what's he got to do? Like if he loads their own driver, will it automatically say this is not the right driver, or will it load and not run the display?
Yeah.
But there's a cell phone, right?
Yeah, all bets are off, but there's...
You get that liquor store CD you have and install
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? If you
it?
load the wrong driver on an SGI, the same thing's going to happen.
Yeah, you don't have to load your driver in HDMI.
But you can start in
Well,
VGA.
yeah, it's a patch.
You can start in safe mode.
Start in VGA.
Right, right. When you start up, there's two modes that you can start up in, and one is with the special driver, or else you can do the standard 640 by 480, and then you have access.
Okay, so you leave that's the way it's like terminal.
Yeah, there is a fallback.
Because I can imagine somebody calling and say, I've got these.
Yeah. Fallen and
You did.
yeah. Yeah. So you have that.
Well, people are so much more fault tolerant on the NTs than you can see us all the time.
Yeah.
Terry, do you
Okay.
see blue screens a lot?
What's that?
The whole blue screen concept?
The question was, is the blue screen, does that happen very often? And I would have to qualify that by saying that depends on your driver and your card, and the graphics card out there. That's it. So that's the answer. Just really be aware of those drivers, once again. Okay, moving on. So I've shown you the task manager, the display properties. One more that's going to be really important is the NT diagnostics, so your administrative tools down here. I'm going to go to Start, Programs, Administrative Tools Common, Windows NT Diagnostics. Yeah! We're talking, we love hierarchy. Now, this is, as far as I know, this is the only window where you can find the name of the machine. Right up here. See that? WSTN. You can't do, host name inside here. This is the way I've worked in Seattle to find out what's the name of the machine. It's right here in the title bar.
If it's too long, you can't see it.
Yeah. Well, I could go into the display properties and
Then it'll show it.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's number one, finding out what the machine name is. So somebody might say they have a problem on the network and they're not accessing it. Well, you go, what's the machine name? Yeah, I don't know, Then you go into here to the diagnostics and you can see what the machine name is. That's
So
number one.
if I try to know how many processors, what type of processor and what speed are they running at?
Yeah, where do you find that stuff?
Thank you very much. This is the next thing right here. When it opens up, when NT Diagnostics opens up, it has this version right here. So you're looking at the version, I don't think you guys can see that, but it has Microsoft Windows NT Workstation version 4.0, Service Pack 3.86, uniprocessor free. So that tells you that they're running version 4.0 with Service Pack 3. So that's on this first splash page right there.
Okay.
So that's the second most important thing right there. What operating system, what service pack is, it's important. Secondly, if you want to know how many processors, you can go into the next tab over, which is System. Was there a question? What? No.
It's not a comment.
No, yeah, whatever. Next tab is System, right here. Under System, you can look under here, and it says it has the BIOS right here, and it also has CPUs. And if this was a double proc, you would see CPU 0 and CPU 1. It says x86 family, 3 genuine Intel, about 299 megahertz. So it's a single 300 megahertz proc running right here. So
99.168.
yeah. So those two give you a lot of information right there. Version, system. Next over you have display. So this will also give you some more display properties, and through here it gives you the BIOS of the display. It gives you the settings. It tells me I'm running a 1280 by 1024 at 32 bits per color pixel at 75 megahertz. It also tells me I have 31 megabytes of VSWAP, or VRAM, sorry. And it tells me the version down here. So you can look in here and you can see what version of the driver that you're running. So 2 places you can see the version number is one in the display properties and the display type. Here's this version number. And the other one is in the NT Diagnostics. And you can see the version type right there. So 2 places to check the version.
How much VRAM do you typically need run mine?
How much?
VRAM?
Typically around 16 megs as a rule of thumb. All the graphics driver manufacturers use their memory differently. So that's why I said it's a rule of thumb. So 16 might be fine for an intergraph, but it might not be enough to run it at 1280 by 1024 on another driver. Yeah.
Can you explain terminology there too? It's a little bit different. You refer to video memory as texture memory. The NTs, there's T-RAM and D-RAM.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
You just said that really well.
I didn't get it. So I like Unigraph and Dime, you'll say it's 32 megabytes of RAM on the video card. Well, that's split up between video RAM, which is for your video buffer, and texture memory for 3D geometry transfer.
Yeah.
So it's kind of misleading there, so you gotta watch that.
Right. Yeah, you do have to watch out, as Jamie pointed out, the difference between video RAM and texture RAM, and they will, most of the graphics card manufacturers will spell that out for you. They'll say TRAM or VRAM. So just a heads up, I guess that is a difference between IRIX and NT, is that they will spell out that they have X amount of video RAM and X amount of texture RAM. So, yeah, and you'll need texture RAM for like the interactive display, so you're getting your textures on there, or for the multi-lister display, so things like that will speed up. Now I'm getting pushed off. I see.
Well, you said you were going to be quick.
I didn't anticipate all the questions.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
no.
I'll try to speed it up.
Okay.
The next tab that's really important is going to be the memory over here. So here's where you can see how much memory they have. Physical memory total 256. So you can tell if they're running really slow, and you go to the memory, if it's 128 or 96 or something like that, it's a good place to check. There are other things here. Network, you can see who's on the network, and over here are services. So you can see what services and devices that they have. So that's just to be quick, that's the NT diagnostics in a nutshell. One of the other things was for you guys working with the shells. I've worked with a bunch of shells, the bash shell, the K shell, the T shell, and none of them they've all had problems. Either the lead process is running, or they mess up your system calls, or whatnot. So I've had to revert to using the DOS shell. And yeah, sorry.
Not a DOS shell, is command prompt.
It's a command prompt, yes. I want to show you just really quickly how to customize it just a little bit to make it easier to work with. So I'm going to start up settings, programs, command prompt right here. And you'll notice that if I type like LS, I don't get anything. If I type DIR, I get something. You have to use your backslashes. Now you notice over here there's no scroll bar, so you don't have any history. So there is a way. Yeah. So I'm going to right mouse button over here on the top left side. I'm going to go to properties. So this is like Maya in a lot of ways. You can get your specific menu by right mouse clicking over the object. So now I have command prompt properties. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to the screen buffer size. I'm going to increase the height from 25 to something like 1,000. And then it pops up another window asking me if I want to modify the shortcut. Okay. Now, this one you don't have to reboot. But this one, it allows you to either modify the properties for this command shell only or for each time that you open the command shell. So I'm going to modify it for each one. Now I have access to what came before. So you have a slider. Troublemaker. Another thing that you can do is here you have no highlighting or history. You can go over here, once again, right mouse button in the properties. I'm going to turn on this quick edit mode and insert mode. I'm going to apply that. I'm going to modify it. Now I can highlight. I can highlight here with the left mouse button, and to copy that to my clipboard, you right mouse button again, and then to access that, I could say CD to, and then I hit my right mouse button, and that pastes what was inside the clipboard. So that's just to help you guys out. Yeah.
Is there a way to become an administrator through here, like super user, so you don't have to log off and log back in as administrator to delete something or?
No. No, there's no way to to get administrator privileges. You have to log off and log back on as administrator. You guys learn too quickly. Okay. And also here, you also have access to history by hitting your arrow keys. So that's just to help you guys out. And one last thing with the command prompt is, if you want to get some of the shell commands, you type L.
/P, display that one page at a time.
Maybe.
Okay. Space /P. Well, if you have big long directory, it will display one page at a time.
Yeah. And for this, this gives you a quick list of the shell commands that you have here. And it says, for more information on a specific command, type help command name. So I look down here and I say, oh, I want to help recover. So if you get something like that, hit the escape button. Help. Copy. And it'll give you specific usage on copy. It'll give you the flags that you need. And that's the way to access the help for the shell commands.
So is there a C shell or anything? Is that what you talked about before?
Once again, yeah, there's some different shells that people have been porting. I imagine that they're getting better now, but while I was testing it out and working on the product, they're all buggy.
Bash is probably the best.
Bash was yeah, Bash was okay. It would mess up system calls and it would leave some processes running. So once again, I had to abandon that for a little bit.
I got like a specific collection of like Unix command emulators, so you can just like instead of typing ls, or sorry, dir, you can type ls as direct function.
Yeah, I mean you could alias stuff, but once again, you have to know what the DOS equivalent is. So.
When you get NFS, like NFS Maestro, a lot of the PC NFS stuff, that kind of stuff comes with those codes when you buy the NFS software.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
Do you know how to change a password in a login? Like if the got administrator and you need to change that or delete a password? Do you know how to do that?
If you're not administrator?
No. If you have a machine and you're letting it out and you have a password on your machine, how do you remove a password or change a password?
And also, if you're not
Even if
well, how are you going to do that on Unix if you don't have root?
You boot it with Irish CD, go to mini root.
Yeah, get into FX and then you you can go into your programs, once again into your administrator and go to user manager into here. So this will bring up your user manager and this gives you who's on your machine and passwords as well. You double click on that. No, and this tells me I don't have access because I'm not an administrator. So that's that. Okay, I'm going to hurry this up. There's a couple things, the Maya NT specific utilities, just so that you guys know. There's, instead of environment variables, there's a thing called the registry. Well, you can have, the registry is how you set all your settings for your system. For Maya, we've included a little UI over the registry called Maya Environment right here. So the Maya Environment exe lives in your AW Maya bin directory. So when you double click on that, that pops up this window. And this gives you Maya environment for version 1.0. This gives you some of the important registries. It gives you access to some of the important registries. Your home directory, your project, your plugin path, your scripts path, and your bitmaps path. And over here, you can change that, or you can add on or append to that by hitting change on this side, and then going in and note you must use semicolon to separate the paths that you list in this dialog. So I would sit semicolon right there, and then I would type in the next path. So that would give you access.
And this is per user account.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to do this for Unix too, for all the stupid users out there. 'Cause a lot of them don't know how to go into just their C file or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it would be so nice.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
a suggestion for the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They get scared when you open the show.
yeah. You guys know that on F-Check we have a GUI now, so you can open an animation or an image. I'm just going to mention that really quickly because it's a little easier to use. We also have something else called Field Assembler right here. So, and this also brings up the UI for if you guys need to interlace your fields. Suppose you have a client using After Effects, maybe. So if you're going to import your fields, this is going to be really important. Use Field Assembler, and that also lives in your bin directory. But the usage, really quickly, is you open up a new sequence, brings up this window, and it'll give you your even field sequence, your odd field sequence, and your output frame sequence. So you just define this by hitting the define button, brings this up, and it'll ask you about the file name. You hit the browse button, brings up another window, and you browse over to where it lives, where these live. And I immediately have some fields right here. I'm going to hit the .e, so I've rendered these out already, and it's got the alias standard name, .extension, .number, E for O. So I'm going to click on the E right here, and if you notice in the defined sequence, it gives you your start frame, your end frame, your increment, your padding, and it gives you a little example right here of what it's going to look like.
So are those already, does it fill those out from the list?
Yeah.
By looking in the directory?
Yeah.
Or so it
Yeah.
usually just fills it out, you know?
Yeah, but I'll show you how that works too with the output sequence. So I'm going to define the odd sequence right here. So I go to my odd sequence, hit that, 10, and with my output frame sequence, okay, so this is where I define what the output's going to be like. And I could browse over here and I could say, well, I want to save this as I don't know, sequence dot number, so that's a wildcard. So you have your number dot IFF. Boom.
That does no padding? Is that like PSGI?
This has this right here, okay, if you notice right here, this has a sequence file name. So I've used my wildcard as the number right in through here and the extension. So I've switched the extension, so especially for After Effects. So if somebody renders an NT and they need to go to After Effects and they say, this is the wrong order, I didn't set my environment variable, what do? You tell them, well, you can use this to switch that. And this also has padding. So there's a check mark right here. You have padding, switch that to 4. And you notice inside this box right here, it's changed the padding. So this is, once again, this is an example of the output that you're going to get. Okay? So I've defined my even, my odd, and my output frame sequence. I hit go, converting frames, done. Okay? I finished converting.
So it brings up this big old window. How much of a GUI really is it?
It's a big GUI. Hey, tell Gar about that one, okay?
Can you run it command line?
Not that I know of.
Well, if you run a command line, it still pops up the window.
Yeah.
That check.
Oh, well, you could. I mean, you could put it like in within Maya. Within Maya, I have it set up as a marking menu. You just do system load field.
I want to do it automatically as an L script and not call it the GUI.
Oh, you guys just want everything.
I want it to automatically.
He wants it the old way. He wants it the old way.
Yeah. In any case, so here's the sequence that I wrote out right here. Sequence dot number dot IFF. So then you can import these into your After Effects. And if you have, so this is for NTSC. If you want to switch it for PAL, when you define your sequence, instead of, you'll see your even sequence, you define it as odd. You just switch it. I argued with the programmer about this. Just saying PAL or NTSC. So, yeah. If you want even field,
some devices, you need to reverse them, so then what happens?
yeah, you define your even field sequence as the odd sequence. And then you define your odd field sequence. Well, it'll have even dominance then. Yeah. So if you need even dominance, then you switch it.
Doesn't that make it go to PAL?
Won't cause any problems.
Yeah.
But what if you're not using PAL and you want to reverse your interlacing on NTSC?
Then you use this. Well, if you need even dominance, you switch it.
Okay.
So, just to let you guys know, hey, I didn't write it.
Are MIDI devices supported on the NT boxes?
No, not for 1.0. MIDI devices are not supported.
Serial ports can
There's one more issue, and I think it's important, and then I'll wrap it up. Hey, John, right on.
Smile, Joe.
You're on. Okay, I'm going to open up this file right here. And this is the file to prog right through here, and it's missing some textures. So I look inside my multi-lister inside here, and I go, hey, what happened? My file textures, they've lost it. The path is wrong. So when I double click inside on the file and it brings up the attribute editor, I look at the path and I see, oh, it's looking for C:AW Maya project SIGGRAPH 98 source images. Well, this is not the path. So you would normally have to browse, go into each one, you click them, but that's not preferred. There's another Maya NT specific utility, or it's actually an open map called dirmap. And what it'll do is it'll map one directory to another directory. So I can take this path in the attribute editor. You access dirmap, and it's all command line.
Yeah.
So the way that you invoke dirmap is you would do dirmap -m for map, and then you have to do in quotes, in double quotes. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight over here
The old path.
yeah, the old path. I'm going to cut using a hotkey of Control-C. I'm going to go in here and paste using Control-V. These slashes are reversed. You need to have them as forward slashes for it to work.
What was the syntax again?
Dirmap minus that.
Yeah.
Minus M,
So that's dirmap minus map.
right. Old path,
Old path and then new path.
all in one set of quotation marks, or each one is separate?
No, separate. So I've done the old path, quotation mark, space, quotation marks, and then my new path, which is up here, in C:/AW/Maya/Maya/prog/source images. Okay, colon, and then you have to enable it. It's not enabled by default.
They should have put in a big window GUIs.
So I have to do dirmap again, dirmap-en for enable, and then hit 1, because it's just Boolean, on or off. I apply that. So now when I open up my scene, now we have our textures.
Very cool.
Okay?
Are they reference textures?
What's that?
They're eating lazy.
Hey, John, how's it going? Morning.
check it out, yeah.
So yeah, that's the DIR map. So that's especially good for your studio paint textures, your file textures, your and convert solid textures going from Unix to MT and back. I have one more thing, but
Not bothered.
yeah, 2 months of wait. But let's just wrap it up and say that's it. You know, help you guys out.
It's a great pleasure to have all of you here today. I thought you all might begin your tour here.
This is a benchmark we did in Detroit. It's actually a fascia, you know, the front part, the bumper. Okay, and I did it in Auto Studio, and then we always reviewed it in Eval Viewer. I don't have Eval Viewer up and running here right now. Oops, that's the buffer. But what I've been doing is I've been demonstrating this. It's been showing people this. This is, I think, 181 surfaces. And we're moving this around because it's using the OpenGL test layer. So the same speed with which you were able to move things around in Eval Viewer, you can actually do it now within Auto Studio.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is always the one I like to have. And as I bring this up, this is the sunset image. So the speed that you've had in Eval Viewer, now you can actually have in the modeling environment. Which brings up this point that as we ship the Surface Studio CD, we'd like to be able to put on some environment maps. So if anybody has ones they particularly like to use and think are effective for reviewing surfaces, I sure would like to get a copy of it if you'd be willing to put it onto our onto the CD. So it's very nice environment mapping. Of course, you can still use the stripes. You can use random colors, all those kind of things that were in Eval Viewer now in the modeling environment. And something something that is different here too is we have this thing called the viewing panel right up here. And it actually now you don't have to be, although this is the perspective window, you can also work in orthographic and have this is front view, side view, back view. Now, many times people say, how come I have to work in a back view? As you have the regular orthogonal windows, you can have now a front view as well. And this is orthographic, so that as you're doing things here, your sections will all be straight, kind of things that people need when they're doing surfacing. Also, you can lock your point of interest so that instead of having it move all over, you can lock its position. Bookmarks are a way to be able to, if you, for instance, are looking at one area in particular, set a bookmark, have another view out here. For one reason or another, set another bookmark. These can also be edited so you can get and then be able to just move between your bookmarks. So it's another way just to organize your viewing environment so that you don't have to keep popping windows up back and forth. And bringing up the issue of windows, that this is something you probably is new for you. We don't have a name for it right now. It's called the panel. But it's basically there because a lot of people, including myself, were really disgusted and tired of popping panels constantly and having them obscure your view. So the majority of the tasks that you have in terms of putting up deviation measures, your accessing your curvature maps, cross-sections, any of those sort of things are all accessible in one place. So for instance, if I pick these surfaces here, you also will be able to, this is a lister that allows you to go through and pick any of those surfaces so you can have one individual surface. And then we can take and turn on the CVs, put on cross-sections. I hadn't set up my cross-sections. I want to have 100 millimeters or 101 again. So I can turn on cross-sections here. We don't have to bring up the cross-section evaluation tool. And I'll do a little bit of a surfacing method using some other stuff, but because we're running kind of late, I'll go through this stuff fairly quickly. Some of the other stuff that's involved. So I've got another part here. It's a tail lamp. Yeah, there we go. So this is part of a tail lamp on a car. And then I've got another part behind it that's all the guts of it. Can't really see it right now. And I say this is stable. Lord willing, it's not going to crash on me. So I've got this. There's hundreds of surfaces here. If we, as we're working on these surfaces, and this is stuff I brought in that was built with degree 3, and so there's a lot of spans here, but you can't see them. One of the things we wanted to be able to do was just turn off all the isoparms, and I've done that. You can turn on and turn off the isoparms, because especially when you got section data and you're trying to, so this is the way it would usually look in Auto Studio with all your U and V isoparms. And you can turn those off now and just have surface boundaries. Won't get in the way of you being able to see your cross-sectional data. So you can see those going away. It's nicer for demoing too. I've been putting those on or taking off. I don't want to lie to anyone, but it's nicer to show something that's more simple. So if I turn on the shading on these two, and there's hundreds of surfaces here. One thing this has as well is transparency, to be able to move. And then there's quite a few more valuation tools, one of which is dynamic section cutting. That allows you to take this.
Why have all this stuff?
White, pardon?
Why doesn't mine have all this stuff?
God bless. Who said that? Isn't that nice? Sick of hearing about mine. So this is a dynamic section tool. I'll just turn off my model, and now I'm just taking, and you can see I have a dynamic. Right. It's a cutting plane. You can put it wherever you want. You're familiar with this tool. It's our construction plane thing. And actually, if I move it out a little bit, you can just see it a little better. We'll be able to cut sections, throw all this data. And this is more for just analysis, looking at something's relationship to other parts. But you can take, like a single surface. If I pick, let's see, that surface there, and then turn on the dynamic section. You can also say, give me some geometry wherever I cut that section. I just hit the geometry button. That leaves a section behind, so I can take and move it up a bit more, cut another section. Or I can ask for curvature too. And I'm afraid that the curvature comb plots right now, I'm not really able to show you very well. They haven't tuned those very well, but another analysis tool, a good way to be able to cut sections, and more than anything, just be able to see the relationship between parts, especially for packaging stuff.
I think the curvature is just not scaled.
You're right, but if I scale it here and then I do the other one, it won't be scaled properly, so I'm holding off on showing that until I get it done. Christoph, by the way, a lot of this development was done based upon work that was asked for by Renault. Christophe Dupont is from our Paris office, and he's been involved in this project where Renault's been given a lot of feedback and had a lot to say about how this software is developed. It's been very beneficial. Maybe we'd like other people to have as much input, but they certainly are a good way to make sure that it's working in a real-world environment. Another one of the goals we've had is, and before this project even started, the goal was make sure that it's as good as ISOMSurf, because in the Detroit area, that's certainly one of our biggest. I got this. That's one of our biggest competitors. Let's see. Let me demonstrate a little bit about some of the ISOMSurf approach for surfacing and how we develop tools to deal with it. So this is a little bit light, but it'll become clearer as I work on this, what's going on. Let me do this instead. Bring up, working on some training documentation. So I've got a file that's sort of set up for it. I won't delete it. So this is a hood that was generated from this method that I'm going to show you. So here's some cross-section data. And this is a new tool as well. As I go into, this is the square tool, but now you can take square, basically just pick 4 corners, and it'll generate a surface. And what we're trying to do here is be able to take the simplest surface, and I set my default so that it was a 1x1. And you'll notice over here, the rebuild uniform function has been put into this panel. So one of the ways in which people like to be able to keep their surfaces extremely light is by just creating it, and I'm going to turn on the CVs, it's all on the control panel. I'm going to increase the degree to 2x1, accept that, and then turn on my cross sections, the Y cross sections. And then this is pretty neat, because if you see, if we move CV here, I got this functions along the bottom, move CV, scan deviation, cross section, curvature, and you'll see how those come into play. But I'm going to move CVs, I want to move a hull, and I want to move it normal. And it doesn't move very fast, I've got step size on it. If I take the step size off, it'll move, actually it should move faster than that, I don't know what the problem is with that. But I can move things normal. And my cross sections update, and this should actually be going faster. I actually can move this stuff around so that I can pull it way off. The cross sections now, as opposed to how we've had to deal with it in the past, in terms of very slow redraws on the screen, now it works quite fast. One thing I want to do too, just because I know this is the problem in this demo, is take these CVs and snap them to the center line.
Paul, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is that building that surface based on the cross-sectional data?
It is based on my getting feedback from the screen. So one of the things I want to do is like pick the center line section and the surface at the same time and say scan deviation. It's going to turn on the deviation along the center line. So I can continue to model this thing by moving this hull. And then that's not enough control in order to match that surface. So I'm going to increase the controls here and continue to model it and get feedback. have had some problems with this, my deviation sort of getting stuck in the corner here. So I can get at it. And this is another point. We're choosing to try and have the users put their shelf over here on the corner, not so much deal with icons. Of course they can, but want to try and keep all their controls over on the side. So we're going to ship some panels that would be set up for some certain workflows in terms of building curves and surfaces. But I'll just, in place of that, I'll put a min-max curve to curve over here. And then I'll continue to move CVs and else. And this kind of gets into a point of, this kind of work can be, I hate to say boring, but it's very tedious. Yeah, and basically they're taking jobs like the first one I showed you, that fascia, and almost building it control vertice by control vertice. And a job like that would not be unusual to spend 6 weeks building it. And so it's a different kind of customer. You don't get the same kind of feedback. You end up working with people who get fed up with their life a lot, but it is a market that's definitely there. And I'd like to find a way for them to not be so fed up.
You need lattices.
Well, that's true. There's a lot of things that we definitely need eventually. But, so, I can continue to work on this and get it to fit that way. The next part of the software that you need to know about is something we call symmetry align. So now we can align symmetry across the plane by taking, first it wants to know. Also, the pick lister has been put into nearly every tool now, so that if you use align, you don't have to up the patch precision. It'll allow you to choose which surface you're going to align to another one. In this case, I want to align this across the center line plane. And I do that, and now, of course, these CVs have snapped up so that they're tangent across the center line. If I take that surface now and continue to model it, now I want to change the amount of controls across center line. And if I pick the object, turn off the cross sections in Y, and turn them on in X, and start to see how I could take an entire hull and move them normal again. And it's really more of a process of, I guess, more like working clay. It certainly isn't like conceptual modeling where things can happen pretty fast. This is a lot more anal. But I can go ahead and pick cross sections here. So I'm picking several cross sections in the surface, and then say scan deviation, and I get an update. You can see this is much faster in terms of as I make changes, the speed with which I get feedback. And on these cross sections as well, but again, picking the object. I can also ask for curvature on these, so these are my X cross sections. I can say, give me curvature. Now, one thing we are working on is the scaling of those curvatures, and right now I have to put them up to a fairly significant level in order to be able to see them.
That's significant.
Yeah.
Can you also shade that for us?
Yeah, sure. And also, I guess I also need to point out that we'll put a new layer here. Take this object and assign it to this layer. Now have symmetry, visual symmetry across planes within your layers, so that you can have, and hopefully I've kept, you don't touch anything, then you get. So the reason I modeled it that way is so I would maintain symmetry across center line. Now, one thing, we can enforce it tangent-wise, but we can't enforce it for rate of curvature across center line. That's something that ice and surf can do, but for right now, we have to do that by actually modeling with the third row of CVs, so that you get a curvature cone plot that goes across center line and is even. So right now, as I look at these, they come to a peak, and I'd have to modify these by going in and choosing CVs, and then actually modeling it. This wants to be normal. There. That wants to be, so it's an even acceleration across center line. But that's one of the finer points of trying to make nice looking surface. So we can have symmetry across center line both visually and enforce it with tangency. Let's see. Orthographic perspective.
Will the
Ah,
curvature,
okay.
will the curvature across surface, this with the surgery be in there for release?
Yeah, it's in there right now, actually. So if I, to demonstrate, this is like a construction history, it is a construction history. If I move CV, let's say XYZ, if I move this one up, whoops, there goes, well, you can see that there's fast updates now. In terms of, I've got on deviation, curvature cone plots, I put on stripes, you see that, and now I'm also got alignment across the center line plane, so they've done a lot, Shriram, and especially on in the developers up on the 6th floor in Toronto in terms of getting fast redraws to the screen.
And they did that with the OpenGL optimizer library?
Right.
So how much of that will make it into Studio?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. The question is how much of this will go into Studio? And I need to make sure you know about this too, because it's going to be an issue when you talk to your salespeople. Right now, Reflect is basically defined by the panel over here, and that panel is going to be an option for Auto Studio. So if somebody buys Auto Studio, in the past they got it all. Well, now, if they buy Auto Studio, they can pay a little bit more too, because they don't get this panel. This is something specific to Reflect. And I don't feel real comfortable about that.
No.
But I guess you need to talk with your salespeople so that they. Pardon? Pricing-wise, I don't know what they're doing.
Is that the module for Studio as well, or just for Studio?
It wouldn't be available at all in Studio. It's only an option for Auto Studio.
Can I comment on that just a little bit, as far as I know?
Yes.
There's a chance that this might be even cheaper than Studio.
Oh,
so yeah, because you gotta take into consideration that you're gonna be missing there's no render, no animation, and there's a lot of functionality that seems a bit either not really the need of the technical people, like anim sweep, all this stuff. It's not in there. Rotational scale, not in there. There's a bunch of stuff that's going to be skipped. So the idea here is to have a target price that's more aggressive than the design product, considering that most people that are going to be interested in that are going to be interested in buying a number of licenses. So it's unrealistic to sell this at a high price. The reason why it's not going to be in Auto Studio is because there's a lot of accounts where many Auto Studio seats are not being used. And so these people would just say, well, let's just, if they're on maintenance, let's just take 20 seats of Auto Studio and put them into engineering, and then you wouldn't sell it. So if you want to be sure that you can sell this, it's got to be relatively cheap, and it's got to be really more like a standalone product.
What does ISIM sell for?
About 35,000, but that's their base module. And they have something called Magic that comes that has rendering and doesn't have animation, and that goes for about 50.
Well, the PTC may be given in a way, though. You never know.
Yeah, I don't know what the issues are.
But I think though the fast shading that will find its way into Studio. As an option of double shade, fast shading.
The fast shading will, it's the same technology, so we're just keeping the UI as the option there, right? So the fast shading stuff is in Studio, it's in Power Animator.
What about like the reflection maps? Can you do
No, that was never there. But, in terms of the price point, original caution, I have to know.
I mean, again, it's just it's pure guessing.
The important thing to remind yourselves of is, it's going to be available as a standalone product that's targeted to a specific market. It's also going to be an option to Auto Studio. The rest is probably TBD.
Right. I haven't used it much, but there are changes to the proportional mod tool, so that now in the past you've had to guess, use it. Now it gives you the ability to come in here and make your choices and get a...
Cool. Yeah, that's cool.
So, and then too, you can revert it back to where it was. You don't have to, you aren't stuck with it. You can make a modification.
Can you deform it and then change the amount that's affected?
Deform it and then change the amount.
Like pull it
up
dial
and
it down.
then change the amount that's affected?
Let's see. I haven't really used it much, so you choose. It's not something I've used, so...
Yeah. Make that
And then now you want to change it for
but it doesn't, it doesn't affect it, what's deformed, but you could refine the pull again, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is,
I'm not sure at what point it would revert. Yeah, I guess it reverted all the way back. So it reverted back to the first choices that I made there.
How many undos you got?
Well, there will be.
I heard they can multiple undo, that's why I'm asking.
No, not at this point. There isn't, but there is supposedly we're going to put into it a delete undo. So if you delete something, you'll be able to undelete it.
Control C, that's Control X.
They're talking about a delete layer. Right, Paul? They're talking about
I have not heard that.
Not aware of it?
No, but it could well be the case. Also, if you notice on the center of interest, there is not only the normal, there's also the plan view, which is somewhat skewed right now, but front view, which is well as skewed. Once it gets like that, I'm afraid I have to delete the windows. But the idea there is that you would be able to have access to your orthographic views without even having to go to the view panel. You can just hit the gnomons, as they call them. So I got to delete my windows here.
We're going to pay extra for those skewed windows?
I'm sorry?
We're going to have to pay extra to get those skewed windows?
that's great. Yeah, that's
If you're willing to pay extra for them, that would work out.
Well, when you're using Cloud Fit or anything, when you first click those points to the cloud, is there a more automated process, like fit surface to cloud?
No. Basically, there's something when we first started the whole project, there was a desire to have something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, we only have it for doing curves, and I'm still going to demonstrate that now.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Delete Windows, modeling windows go. How can there not be any modeling? I think there's no modeling. So that's somewhat of an isosurf approach. You're basically starting with very simple. They hate spans. They hate addition. A lot of spans. In fact, pretty much want to keep it within 5 or 6 rows of control vertices. Don't want to have it a lot of spans in it. And so the simplest way to work is from just a 1x1 patch, 2x2, 3x3, and just continue to increase the complexity and balancing off the complexity and the how good the surface is against the deviation. So I'm going to delete that.
Nada function over there.
Pardon?
Pick nothing?
Pick nothing.
Yeah,
Nada. This is for the South American market. Now I'm going to turn these off because I want to show you the take curve here. Put that in my default layer. And so I'm going to go into a front view. And there's a tool in here called Fit Curve. And this was specifically made so that we can take digitized data and fit a curve to it. So I'm going to pick this. I've still got my, it's still showing me symmetry here, but I'm going to try this. There's 2 different methods. Whole fit, which tries to give the nicest dispersal of control vertices across it. And if I move the ends, wherever I move it, it's going to continue to update it so that I can fit it and look at deviation. Deviation will update. And I can have curvature cone plots. And I can modify the number of samples with this curvature right here. So I'm trying to balance off nice looking curvature along simple geometry. But I can continue to make modifications to it, change the degree and the number of spans. you notice these little blue arrows. Those indicate inflection points, and you'll see that the curvature tool now is a locator. It's no longer an evaluation tool. It's a locator, and it's persistent. And there is a tool in here as well for doing a break at inflection. So if you have a curve, the blue arrows indicate the inflection points, and you can actually break the curve at those inflection points. And that would be an unusually hideous curve there. But then you can also do additional curves while you're, so you can do a number of curves while you're still in this function, and there's history while you're in the function. So I can still go back to this curve and make modifications to it. And the idea here is just to be able to fit nice curves for the geometry so that you can continue to make better looking surfaces from it. And as I mentioned, there's a hull fit here. There's also something called least squares. The least squares that you've seen before in and is used in our rebuild functions actually has more flexibility with it now, so that you can reduce the stiffness and just use curvature constancy, and it's going to try to make it more circular, I believe. I'm not real clear on how these get used. The idea is there at least to have some flexibility when you're using the least squares. So it's something to play with for me anyway.
I think stiffness will, if you've got one point that's really off of the curve, like noise,
okay,
the more stiffness you have, the more the curve is going to resist trying to approach that point that's going to be considered as noise.
Okay. So we did the square. Also, as we're building, let me go back to this other stage and turn off this section. And bring up. So this is something we got at Renault. And there's actually, this is pretty consistent with the way that they work. If I were to put on the, just put on the controls for these, you see that there isn't much in the way of, there aren't any spans. It's very simple in geometry, but then there is some usually they set up on a hotkey, but we had to. And it also seems to be real slow with this for turning off controls, but it'll eventually come.
Mind turning the background black?
I don't mind. I'll do that as soon as it stops trying to get rid of these control vertices. As I've been demonstrating, it's been about 50-50. Some people, if I put a black background, then they complain about that. And there we go. So, take a look at the stripes on it. There's some issues with tangency in this patch right here. And in the past, we've had to check that with continuity checker, the surface continuity checker. So now those kind of, oops, that. So I want to evaluate surface continuity. Now that's persistent, so that it sticks around instead of just trying it and then it goes away, so that it gives you the opportunity to take this patch right here and turn on those controls and actually go in and make modifications to the CVs and get an update on what your tangency is doing. So that's sort of jumping all over the place. That's a good time to turn on the step size. And then I can just make very small incremental movements. Basically make a modification. In fact, I can use the arrow keys, and again, those are using the values that are put into the step size. And turn the whole hull there. also, if I make modification to that again, and then if we take a look under Windows, there's a deviation table, and that deviation table gives you the ability to see specifically where the points are, in this case, deviation from tangency on the curve, or on the boundaries between two surfaces. So as I move and scroll here, you can see where those positions are on the object, and that'll work for both tangency, deviation from scans, and curvature as well. And then you can, if I had so my deviation's here between 184, so if I put this at an angle minimum at 0.5, and then set that at 0.1. Now that's giving me just the points that fall within this range, and say clip to that band, and then it's showing me just those points which are falling within that range. Now, I haven't learned to use that tool particularly effectively, but it's one that Renault requested. I guess it was something that was in
Well, the idea here is that you want to set the minimum value to the tolerance, then the high value, you set it pretty high.
You see everything above it.
Yeah.
So in this case,
by default, the deviation plot is, especially if you're measuring to a scan line, for instance, and you've got 1,000 points, it's going to measure for each point by default. So it's going to measure each and every point. And right now, if you're measuring to scan data, you can't, I don't think you can sample the deviation plot other than using this tool.
Paul?
Yeah.
Is there a line tool that you can use on that edge?
Yeah, you can.
Will it hold the other edges adjacent?
Same align tool that we've always been using.
No.
The only difference is that now the align tool has an explicit, and I need to, I guess, explain what explicit here is. Some of the customers were not keen on the fact that we put a lot of segmentation, especially when we work off of curves on surface, and this obviously right here is a trimmed patch. We build that patch using square tool, and definitely want to rebuild that. And come on. Let's try and keep tangency in there. I don't really want tangency in this one. So. And if I look at the controls on that, I guess I do want tangency, just so I can show this. So now within square, bi-rails, and align tools, I think they're going to try and put it in some additional ones like draft.
Flange and draft.
Flange and draft. I can go and say explicit control. In other words, regardless of whatever the square tool is telling you what to do, I want you to build this thing with, I keep losing my
You got to rebuild every edge. You got to go up and rebuild edges, I think.
I think not. I think I just have to have the max spans has to go down to 0.
Okay.
So now it's a 3x3 patch. I can say make it a 5x5 patch. Still going to try and enforce that continuity based on the tangent planes, but now I have more control over how, what the degree, what the spans are across this surface. So there's sort of a conflict here, because some of the customers are saying you need to have a model that can be stitched and taken into a solid modeler, and in that case, I really don't want explicit controls. I really want you to come back and put the spans in necessary so that I can have positional tolerance and tangent tolerance to go into a solid modeler. But some of the customers would rather sacrifice that sort of capability and have control instead of how complicated the surfaces are.
So when you do that, will it tell you what your maximum deviation is as you're
yeah, I should have put that in there. So if I go query edit, it'll come back. Continuity check is now in the square and bi-rail tools. So those will be maintained. That's persistent. And even when I leave here or come back to it, you'll know what the deviations are. Oh, okay. One more is difference here. If I put this in a plan view, actually I need to go to a real plan view. One thing that's unfortunate, I think, right now is that right now, although this is orthographically in a plan view, you can't create geometry. In other words, if I try and create a curve here, it still thinks it's a perspective view. Hopefully that can be changed, but I don't feel like it will for this version anyway. If I do take and build a curve through here, I'm going to delete my locators so this doesn't get in the way. And I want to project this onto this surface, so I pick this object, and I want to make sure this is on. So I'm going to do a surface project. Now there's an automatic function for, after doing a projection, to do a trimming. So right now it's on. If I say go, and I do a project here, it comes back. So go, wants to know which side. I want to keep this side. So you can do an automatic project and trim.
Can you shrink it at the same time?
I think that would be up to what the default is in your trim tool.
Okay.
Four corners, curve fit, visual evaluation, deviation tables, persistent surface line. Okay, I've covered most of it now. Anything I'm missing? I think we've got most of it here. The idea was to create an environment that, at the very least, reduces the amount of effort to put your feedback in terms of curvature and visual feedback in terms of highlights, and then the ways that you're going to make modifications to it all in one place, not have to keep popping up all your evaluation tools, and try and simplify the environment. One of the things I mentioned that we're trying to do is not just when fall comes, and this is supposed to be released to customers on November 27th. At that point, we also want to make sure that there's tutorials that go out with it, and that there's training sessions already set up so that, well, AEs will be trained prior to that release date. And we're looking at, I guess, we're looking at the end of August for Europe, but for everybody in the United States, certainly before November comes, we're going to have at least a 3-day session so that you'll have demo stuff set up, you'll have example files, and you'll see some of the workflows that people would typically use with this kind of software.
Can we get a copy of that now?
Yeah, absolutely. Phil Brown was, as I understood it, was supposed to have a stack of alpha copies right here. You are all absolutely should have it, and we definitely need feedback for alpha and beta testing.
Will there be eval viewer too?
Actually, eval viewer will be accessible, and there's a more direct interface between eval viewer. For some reason, I can't get eval viewer up and running, but the icon is there, and you won't have to have separate sessions. You'll be able to work back and forth between two copies of Reflect Auto Studio and eval viewer. So as you bring up data here, you can take it into eval viewer. It asks you, should I delete all the data that's here? Either yes or no, and then it just brings it in. You'll also be able to read alias triangle files. Since I can't bring eval viewer up, I should at least mention some of the things that are different about it. The meshing functions, we've had these view meshes. There's now something that's called a volume mesh, which tries to it reduces the need to have it done from different views. It'll try and create one mesh just from a cloud of points. There's tools for working on STL files. There will be a Direct Connect Unigraphics product coming out with Studio this fall. So you'll have Direct Connect to Auto Studio and Unigraphics.
Sorting sections, XYZ, and
right now that's a Renault one as well. You have a bunch of different XYZ sections or planar sections, 3D lines. Eval Viewer will sort those all out, put them into groups, and be able to take them in a more organized way into Studio.
draft evaluation with color color maps.
Should do that right here.
And
Sorry about that.
surface part.
Actually, right now, these surfaces are, pick this out, turn those off. Right now, there are, oops. This will be curvature maps. I don't think they're particularly effective right now. The one that is working pretty decent is the draft angle. So right now, the draft direction is in the Z direction. And yeah, and it's interactive too. So if I change the draft angle to 5 degrees,
Into the parting line with the curve on surface.
it'll update. There's a difference right now. You know, we're using two tools, and that's something we're under discussion right now. We got color analysis, and then we got our draft tool, which I'll show you. But at the very least, if I, this is kind of a nice feature that if I put transparency on, and I've got the draft analysis on, and then I pick some of these surfaces, turn on the controls, you'll see that it updates very quickly. I'm going to modify CVs now to change where that draft line is. And actually the draft line itself, so if I turn this off, whoops, turn them all off, and pick these surfaces, I could pick more, but I'm going to use the evaluation tool. So all the evaluation tools, surface evaluation tools, such as highlights, horizon, contour, curvature, all of these have both a method by which you get the curves on surfaces, but also now there's a visual. And if you use visual, they'll be much faster. And then in the same way, the evaluation check draft tool. And I don't really want to have any of those little green and red dots right now. Actually, it might be that I've got to put one in there. I had some problems with this before. But I want to show the parting line. There we go. Let's know what surface is. Got locked up yesterday when I did this. It might be a good finale.
Is that parting line really based on X, Y, or Z projections?
Well, it's based on a vector which you can set. It doesn't have to be X, Y, or Z.
Oh, okay.
And then it also based on the amount of draft, so you can tell it how much draft. And then there's just as fast an update with these lines as with those cross-section lines, so they work very fast, but you can use it as geometry as well. Hopefully it's not going to get locked up, but in the interim, I'll take any questions.
What are some of the features of this that you say or anything else does not have? I don't know if there's something we have now that this really is not.
Well, I'd be more concerned about, at least what I keep being pressured by, especially at Ford, is it's not the features that we have, although the features we do have are fast graphics.
Faster?
The ability, yeah, I'd say that probably ours are faster than ISOM, and the sections updates are faster. What ISOM has is a more mature product are things like they can take a patch, make it positional, and then tangent on top of another patch without having to have a curve on surface. So they can actually move CVs along another patch without having to have a curve on surface. And right now, we've got to deal with the issue of having start someplace, which is basically putting a curve on surface, moving the curve on surface, and then having an align to it, either through putting blend curves or using the align function. That's one of the reasons that we put that explicit stuff in there, so that it doesn't get loaded with isoforms at the place that you make an attachment to it. Here we go.
Turn that off. So,
yeah.
Does Surface Studio also, are there any tools to deal with stereo files?
In Eval Viewer, he's added some STL files, some things to be able to make the edges of triangles line up in an STL file, and put it into a positive position.
In Eval Viewer, I think.
Eval Viewer, right.
So you can read it and vary it back out and do the welding of the joints.
Right. You know, I don't remember that being in the documentation, so I'm not sure. I don't know.
I know the big issue as I see it is that in this market, everybody's already got a tool. Everybody's got a surfacing tool, and most people have had it for some time and have been using it successfully. So the idea is going to people and saying, you've got to switch over to us. To be able to say that, you've got not only to match up their functionality, but you've got to go quite a bit beyond.
Thank you, Christophe. You're right, and it is particularly when you go up against ISOMSurf, it's kind of tough.
Especially where people are a bit aggressive is usually they've become quite experts on the product they're using, and so even if some of their tools are less productive, because they're such experts on it, they can overcome that. And to have to relearn a new tool, it's a pretty big deal psychologically.
And you're absolutely right, Christophe, but the issue then, the way we try and pitch it, is the fact that we already have styling tools that are inside your facility probably, maybe not, but what we're trying to pitch is that we're going to take care of all your needs in terms of shape definition. So this might be CATIA, Unigraphics, SDRC, but if you don't want to have a number of different tools over here, then we're going to provide the sketching functions, the conceptual modeling functions, and the Class A functions all within a suite of products, rather than having to have a bunch of different products in there. And then provide direct connect products to get it into the CAD tools. But right now we are, it is tough to come up against ISOM and a lot of, well, the tools really are image work, which it's kind of tough to believe that they have been pitching pretty successfully in Detroit. Image work, Matra, and they have a product now called Styler.
But nobody's seen it really.
Right. And ISOMSurf, but ISOMSurf is right on the top. The best thing that we have is that they got bought by Pro Engineers, PTC. Any other questions? Because Scott's ready to get me out of here. Okay.